They don't, I don't think you have to do it every year. I think it's every other year, right?
That's correct.
But it's a richer source of data than it was even when Art's there. This is new in the last couple of years. So you will find some interesting data both in states and school districts.
And it was published for the first time in the last year, I think, right?
I'm sorry?
In terms of being published on the website, I felt like it was...
I had access to it before, but I don't know how I found it. And I don't know during your time.
Yes, sir.
Given our need to rely on OCR and the Department of Justice for a lot of issues because of their tie to disparate impact, I'm wondering what, from your different perspectives and experience, you think about the capacity and will of OCR and DOJ on this particular issue in terms of the ability to really focus in on something that would get to what Alan is talking about, you know, where you're looking at what happens when kids can't comprehend the language of instruction very well as a factor in this, and then connected to that a disparate impact, because there's so much rich stuff you've all talked about. I want to look back to the first set of issues that I think is connected with this in terms of the diversity issues and PICS and response to that, which is how you reach, you know, from trying to get at towards the same ends, representing different clients, you have somewhat different perspectives, how you factor into your own thinking about legal strategy the fact that, okay, what happens in the context of trying to rely on non-racial factors to get at some of these diversity issues? What's happening in the context from a civil rights perspective? You know, we want a strong resuscitation of disparate impact as we can get, right, beyond intent. And also, we want a pretty rigorous look at intent and making sure that you know, supposed reliance on other factors isn't a mask for race in a totally different context, I understand. How do you think about that strategically as lawyers in your various roles? So those are my two questions.
Even though it's OCR related, I want to answer that before Art. My feeling about OCR and DOJ is that there are a lot of people of goodwill who want to do the right thing. I do think they get paralyzed, though, in terms of taking on positions that are going to be strongly adversarial. I think when they're able to find a school district, or in the case of DOJ, a potential defendant that's willing to settle out, that's one thing. But when it comes time to fight, I've had some experiences, and Estelle's kind of laughing because we deal a lot of this in the voting context, but I'm speaking specifically in the education context. We've had circumstances where I've just felt like there were issues that they should have been fighting on, and they kind of left it to us, the private parties, to do the work.
I sort of want to say, this is off the record, but I'm looking straight into the camera, so I guess I can't get away with that. I'll say this broadly. I don't have any dispute, given who's there right now, frankly that's a political comment, about the commitment on this set of issues. My perspective, I think, in harmony with yours, going back now more years than I care to count, is that I have real questions about capacity. My worldview, which is why I tried to argue we needed to change the standing rule, is you've got people who are in the trenches, and you've got 13 offices across the country, 500 or 600 employees. I mean, you just sort of think about that from a management standpoint, a number of whom have been there for a very long You've got people trying absolutely to do justice, who may be less strategic or rigorous legally in their assessment of what justice for their particular purposes is. I mean, I'll be transparent. My big fight when I was there, and I was accused of being Antonin Scalia. My big fight when I was there was to say, you know what, your job is to do justice within a narrow set of well-established parameters and principles. And if you're off the reservation, then why are you spending your time there or pursuing a case where there's not going to be something to be gained? Spend your time somewhere else where you can actually get something done. I wasn't the most popular kid on the block, but the point being, I think they are pulled in so many different directions, on so many fronts, with varying levels of capacity depending on the office, that it's a real challenge to get them to step back and say, look at this sort of fundamental issue and make it a priority. It's not to say it doesn't exist and doesn't happen, but the short story, and I would have said this even wearing the OCR hat, OCR is not a panacea. And that should be clear to the litigators here who may be thinking about it. You can do lots of really good and effective things with OCR, with lots of very committed people. But at the end of the day, as their processes are certainly more informal than litigation and at some level less onerous, I'm right now working on a DSEG case that's been going on for 9 years. And for the first time in the last 3 months, I actually got some statement of clarity from OCR about what they were looking for.
I would just like to add one point. I agree with both of what John and Art said, but everything is a matter of context. In today's world, it's different from the world of 30 years ago. You don't have a lot of people out there combing the streets and working with parents to bring these cases in court. You don't have a receptive judiciary. And so, in many parts of the country, there just isn't anybody, so that the Office for Civil Rights is the only game in town, and that it really, you can get somewhere with them, but you're certainly not going to get what the kids need.
All right, we're at 5 o'clock.
You are at 5 o'clock, and I just think we owe this panel a terrific round. I know for one I learned a great deal, so thank you.